Will Hangman Adam Page be the one individual to dethrone Jon Moxley as the world champion? Will Mercedes Moné be able to capture her seventh world championship? And who will unify the Continental and the International Championship between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada? We answer all these questions and more as we attempt to predict every single match scheduled for this upcoming weekend's AEW All In event. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel in order to stay up to date with all things pro wrestling, as well as joining us on our occasional live stream talking the ongoing events in pro wrestling. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thanks for joining me in today's video, and let's just go ahead and just jump right into it, beginning with the unification matchup for the Continental and the International Championship. We have a matchup here that is years in the making. It's been quite some time since we've seen Okada and Omega share a ring one-on-one, but for the first time ever in AEW, we will be able to see that in All In Texas. I do believe that this matchup is sorely needed for two different reasons. One, to give another opportunity for fans to watch Omega versus Okada outside of New Japan. It's never happened, but also because we need to unify these titles, the Continental and the International Championship. There really is no reason to have both titles at this point. I love the concept of the International Championship, but for the Continental title, it's really not necessary outside of the Continental Classic. If it were to be a championship or like a trophy just for the one-time event, that is one thing, but to have it year-round is another. I don't really see the point of having it around. I do like the idea of unifying these titles, and with that being said, Okada has been on a run with that championship since he arrived on the scene in AEW, and Kenny Omega, during that duration, had been gone for quite some time. He's back now, won the International Championship earlier this year, and I do think we're going to capitalize on that momentum and have Kenny Omega successfully unify the championships and have him defeat Okada moving forward and trying to reclaim that top spot in AEW. Speaking of reclaiming the top spot in AEW, we move on to the men's casino gauntlet matchup. I'm really looking forward to this and the women's gauntlet matchup because it could offer a little bit of surprise for us as audience members. The field right now isn't really that obvious for the men. We only know that Mark Briscoe, we know that MJF, and Mystico will be a part of the matchup. Of course, we're going to be introduced to some prize entrances during the matchup itself, but I do think that MJF is going to be walking out of the matchup victorious. It's been teased ever since he's been joining up with the Hurt Syndicate that he wants to get back to the main title picture. Obviously, the Hurt Syndicate in the tag team division, MJF could probably jump up to the main title scene. I'm going to go with MJF here to win the matchup. If not, probably some sort of a surprise, but I really find it difficult that MJF doesn't walk out of Texas with the Casino Gauntlet win. And since we're on the topic of the Casino Gauntlet, let's stick with the women's division here. A lot of names could be possible as the victor for this matchup, but I'm going to step outside here and take a moment to think creatively. We haven't seen any clear-cut favorites when it comes to the winner of the women's gauntlet matchup. One person that did come to my mind was Alex Windsor, who we saw will be making her debut pretty soon in AEW, but I don't think we're going to have the person win this gauntlet matchup just to lose later down the road. I do think, and this might, sway people's opinions or their thoughts as to who would win the women's championship matchup, but I think Camille makes her return, wins the gauntlet matchup, and has a future championship opportunity against the future AEW World Champion, which we'll get to in a second here. But I think Camille makes a surprise and shocking return and wins this championship opportunity. Since we kind of already spoiled it, let's talk about the AEW Women's World Championship, a matchup that I'm really looking forward to. These are two of the very best that the women's division has to offer in All Elite Wrestling. Mercedes Moné, a holder of 6 different championships, taking on timeless Toni Storm, who has carried the women's division and quite frankly the company on her back for the better part of 2 years. This matchup has the potential to be the match of the night, maybe even the match of the year, because I do think that Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné are just as talented as anybody and could deliver an all-time classic here, not only for the women's division, but just for pro wrestling in general. I have high expectations for this matchup. Going into my predictions, I was on the fence here. Didn't know if we had Toni Storm win, maybe Mercedes goes over, but I do think regardless of whoever wins, the next champion is going to be set up for success because whoever wins here is going to be the top dog. It's going to be the main woman, I guess, in the division. I was gonna say main man, but the main woman in this division, and she has 6 championships. I think she walks out with the seventh. I think Mercedes Moné wins the world championship. If she were to take that loss to Toni Storm, I don't know where else we can go with Toni. I don't know who they could have her face. Maybe it would be against someone like Alex Windsor, but again, I don't think so. I think Mercedes gets the win and eventually drops the title to the Casino Gauntlet winner in Camille. We move on to the AEW TNT Championship, a matchup that was just announced this past Saturday on Collision. We have Adam Cole, baby, versus Kyle Fletcher. This matchup I am really looking forward to. I already said that about the women's matchup, but Kyle Fletcher delivered a great showing here against Danny Garcia. So him versus Adam Cole, I'm really looking forward to it. It's also a callback to their matchup at All In, where it was a tag team matchup between MJF and Adam Cole versus the Aussie Open. I think it's going to be delivering a great matchup here between the two. Adam Cole, obviously, we know him as capable as anybody to put on a great matchup here, but I do think it's time to crown Kyle Fletcher as that next TNT champion. Maybe even begin to push him up the ranks into a world title scene, but might be a little bit too early for him now. I do think that Kyle Fletcher delivers a great performance, possibly one of his best performances in AEW this upcoming Saturday as he defeats Adam Cole for that TNT title. How about a little bit of tag team action as we have a triple threat for the AEW World Tag Team Championships as we see the patriarchies Christian Cage and Nick Wayne versus Jet Speed, obviously Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, challenging the tag team champions, the Hurt Syndicates, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin. An intriguing matchup here. Initially, I thought it was just going to be a traditional 2 versus 2, with Jet Speed being the challengers for the Hurt Businesses, or excuse me, the Hurt Syndicates tag team titles. But with the introduction of the patriarchy here in this matchup, it adds a little wrinkle, a little depth into the story that is being told for this tag team. Whenever I see at least 3 participants in a matchup, this leads me to believe that we're going to be protecting one or the other. I really could go with anybody here. The one team I think that does not win is Jet Speed. I do not think that Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight win the matchup. Love what they're doing on AEW, and I think it's a great thing that we have them building up as these sympathetic baby faces, but I don't think it is their time to win. I would like to pick the patriarchy, but I think we're going to start seeing dissension and more cracks being introduced in the story of Christian Cage versus Nick Wayne. If anything, what if we see Nick Wayne get jumped, get attacked by Christian Cage at some point? For that reason alone, I'm going to go with the Hurt Syndicate to retain. Shelton Benjamin also took the pinfall in that 3-way matchup. I don't think that was for any reason other than him and Bobby Lashley successfully retaining the titles. Remember that. I think because of Benjamin taking that loss, we're going to see him get revenge here at All In. Hurt Syndicate take the win. And also another tag team matchup with high stakes as the Young Bucks take on Will Osprey and Swerve Strickland, except there are some real ramifications when it comes to this matchup. If the Young Bucks lose this tag team match, they will lose their titles of the EVPs. But on the flip side, if Will Osprey and Swerve Strickland take the loss here, they will not be able to challenge for the World Championship for the next year. Very intriguing storylines here, and it would be really easy for someone like myself to predict what the Young Bucks are going to lose, because we no longer need the EVP titles. Swerve and Will Osprey are big enough names where they should be in the title contention year round. But we've seen a lot of tension between Will Osprey and Swerve Strickland and how they're going to coexist. Obviously, Will Osprey had to go Swerve Strickland into accepting these terms to the tag team matchup. For that reason, though, I think AEW's roster is deep enough to where they could get away with Will Osprey and Swerve Strickland being out of the title picture. I think the Young Bucks take this win. I think they continue to move forward as the top heels in the company, and I think Will and Swerve are going to dive into their own rivalry here for the time being. In a year's time will fly by, and before you know it, these two will be back in the title contention. I'm rocking with the Young Bucks to take the win, and it might piss off a lot of fans for All In, but I do think they're going to go with the heels to take the win here. And finally, for the main event, the AEW World Championship will be contested in a Texas Death matchup as Hangman Adam Page looks to dethrone Jon Moxley as that champion. He's been the champion ever since Wrestle Dream, and I gotta say, this is the matchup that I think everybody should have their eyes on this upcoming weekend. Being that it is a Texas death match, I think what's in store is kind of an end game type of a finish, very similar to the Bloodline Rules match at WrestleMania 40, where Cody Rhodes finished his story, and there was a lot of interference. We saw the likes of, The Rock, John Cena, The Undertaker, among others, participate in that battle. I think we're going to get something similar here. Possibly appearances by the Young Bucks, the Death Riders, Kazuchika Okada, Kenny Omega, Swerve, Osprey, maybe even Sting. I think we're in store for a lot of run-ins here for this matchup. And I gotta say, Jon Moxley's reign as the AEW champion has accomplished its goal. People were supposed to boo this man. People were supposed to hate the Death Riders. And I gotta say, they were really successful because a lot of people, myself included, are kind of tired of the reign. We want something fresh. I thought there was a time there where Darby Allin would be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley. We haven't seen Darby Allin in a minute. Maybe he makes an appearance here for this matchup. Then there was Swerve and then Will Osprey. Both failed, but I think Hangman will be the one to dethrone Moxley and finally regain that AEW World Championship that he lost way back in 2022 versus CM Punk. This is a matchup, though, that I think will be filled with chaos, will be filled with emotion, and a lot of violence, being that it's a Texas death matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be Hangman taking the victory and finally moving AEW into the light and restoring that feeling, if you will, for AEW fans and pro wrestling fans in general. But I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Make sure you comment down below who you think will be walking out of Texas with the AEW World Champion, or as a matter of fact for any of these matches as well. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, comment down below your thoughts and questions, and make sure you subscribe to the channel in order to stay up to date with all things pro wrestling, as well as joining in on our live streams where you guys can help direct and dictate the conversation regarding pro wrestling. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thanking you for joining me in today's predictions video, and of course, I will see you all in the next one.